Okay, everyone, welcome back. My name is Walt Goodridge, the Jamaican in China. And for those who've been watching my channel for a little while, you might be familiar with our guest. This is Ken Marks, the exotic foreigner in Kazakhstan. And we are going to get right into it. And I'm going to read something. There are an estimated 9 million US Americans living overseas. And this is from PR Newswire. Every 3 months, the US government publishes the names of all Americans under the IRS rules who give up their citizenship. 2020 saw 6,705 Americans renounce their citizenship, and that was 260% more than in 2019, when 2,577 Americans renounced their citizenships. So just based on those numbers, what I see is just at the beginning of the pandemic, there were roughly 2,500 Americans renouncing their citizenship. As we got into the pandemic, that number almost tripled to 6,000. So I think what happens, and I remember hearing this, is that a lot of people were unhappy with the US government's response to the pandemic and the lockdowns and the masks. So they made an emotional decision that said, you know, if this is the way it's going to be in America, then I'm leaving. And a lot of them did. They gave up their US citizenships and lived abroad. So I'm going to speculate that the reason people give up their US citizenships, or maybe any citizenship of any country, has to do with emotional reasons more so than practical, logical reasons. I also read another article that said a lot of people who are permanently living overseas are renouncing their citizenships because of tax laws. They're still required to pay certain taxes, and they feel that it's unfair and, you know, it gets complicated. So a lot of people renounce their citizenship for that reason. I can tell you from personal experience, it's an emotional thing, but one of the reasons I won't give up my Jamaican citizenship and become a US citizen is, you know, it has nothing practical about it. It's simply an emotional attachment to being Jamaican. So you know, despite what sense it makes in other people's eyes to do it, I just don't want, you know, to do that. So, but you're the guest of the hour, Ken. So the question is, you mentioned in our last interview that you are planning to give up your US citizenship. You are an American citizen born in the Bronx in New York. So the number one question is, why? The floor is yours.
Okay, so there's many reasons. Yeah, it's all emotional reasons, but I guess you could say for me there are some practical reasons, but so after traveling abroad and living out in several countries for quite a long time, it's dawned on me that my life is a lot easier and happier living among people from other nationalities, because there's a lot of things that I never got to experience. Things like what it's like to have normal friends, you know, simply going to the movies or going for a walk or hiking. These things I never got to experience in New York City because, you know, the mentality is a lot different. In New York City, it's very consumerist. It's all about working, making as much money as you can, and what you can buy, buying the biggest house, the biggest car, and showing off your status. And it's so toxic. Plus, another reason why, which is also kind of emotional, is because living overseas, there's a lot of there's no difference between the peoples. So, like when I came to Kazakhstan, yes, I look different. I'm, you know, exotic looking, but no, there was no kind of like nobody put me in a kind of box or an identity that was given to me by that society. It's more like you're a blank slate, and how you act is how people treat you. And that's something new and fresh that I don't never got to experience. Growing up from the Bronx, if you're born in the Bronx, you have like kind of a negative kind of like image just because you're from there, because that particular area is infamous for a lot of, bad people. So you could be the nicest person in the world, but if you move to another state, for example, and they say, "Oh, where are you from?" and you say, "Oh, I'm from the Bronx,"
They'll take a step back.
one of those people, and they just treat you like
Mhm.
with a distance, like kind of like a wall. But when I lived overseas, Kazakhstan, Japan, when I interacted with Chinese, Koreans, Russians, all of these people, they've never done such a thing for me. And it's so fresh. It's so refreshing. I would never imagine I would be able to escape this thing. Why? Now, for the practical reasons why is, a lot of, I guess I should say foreigners, they want to come to America because they believe that if they come to America or anywhere in the West or Europe or something, they're going to get a lot of opportunities. There's financial opportunities. Some people say freedom, et cetera, et cetera. But for me, it's the complete opposite. When I go to, for example, to Russia or Kazakhstan or whatever, they want me to model for them. They want me to be on TV. They want me to do this, this, this. Oh, here's a business card. You can work with us. I never got that in the United States. So it's kind of like, if people are coming to America for financial reasons, why can't I do the same out there? And lastly, I want to say, which is probably a dark reason, but the United States, my country, is not a very nice country to other nations. For example, if you look into our history, it has a very dark past, colonialism, all that stuff. And I don't agree with this. I don't want to say, yes, I'm proud of my culture, my history. It's not something I agree with. So I don't want to promote it by saying that, yes, I'm American and I'm proud and this is what I stand for. I want nothing to do with that. So by giving this up, it's kind of a way to say, I want nothing to do with this. I don't agree with their politics. I don't agree with their policy. And this other culture here, this is where I belong. This is where people and I get along. And this is where I can really thrive and whatnot. So this is the reason.
Okay, I get it. Now, one of my philosophies in life is it's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. And I use that as as my mantra through life. If I'm going somewhere and I say, okay, should I bring the camera with me? It's a little heavy. I say, okay, it's better to have the camera and not need it than to need the camera and not have it. So similarly, wouldn't it be better? And I can understand how an emotional decision will trump all common sense and logic, but wouldn't it be better to have the passport and simply not use it, if you don't need it, than to one day need it for whatever reason and not have it? What's your response to that?
So I have two responses. One, maybe not most, but in general, the world is becoming more developed than it was in the past, to the point that the Western countries like the US or the UK are not the only countries where whatever it is that you might need in America, for example, they might have it someplace else, even better. For example, one of the things that people like about the US passport is the fact that they can travel to many countries without needing a visa. But there are also other countries that have more countries you can visit without a visa. So logically, then I would rather, it's better to take that one than the US passport. my second response is, although I want to travel to different countries in Asia, as long as I'm able to go to the countries that that are my favorite, my 5 or 6 favorite countries, that's all I need.
Okay. All right. So now, I'm not familiar with the process, but if you renounce your US citizenship, I would imagine as a human being on the planet who travels, you're going to need a passport from another country. Do you secure the passport from the other country at the same time? How does that work? How do you, if you want to walk us through, just really quickly, not too detailed, how you actually give up the citizenship and the passport, and what do you actually replace it with? Which specific country are you, or countries are you planning to replace your US passport with?